So thank you very much for coming to this session. My name is Wanda Barker, and I am the Executive Director of E-Learning and Learning Technology Systems at the System Office. And I'm one of those people when they say I'm from Raleigh and I'm here to help. I really am. If I can help your college in any way, I'm happy to. And I'm going to tell you one of the resources that we have that really does help the community college system. But our session today is called Lost in Translation, and it's really about interacting and communicating with your students. So many of the sessions today were sponsored by the virtual learning community, and this is one of those. We have some representatives from the virtual learning community here today. Jennifer Jones is at the VLC Professional Development Center at Wake Tech, and she worked with Christine to coordinate some of the sessions and who would be able to deliver them, and so she recruited us to say, okay, I want you to do this one and this one and this one, and so we just kind of listen and say, okay, whatever you need. But the Professional Development Center for the virtual learning community basically provides any sort of training, support on distance education to the faculty for whatever tools that you need. Maybe it's not just for distance learning courses, but for classroom engagement as well. And we have the Virtual Learning Community Quality and Assessment Center at Surrey Community College, which really does all of the research and best practices and coordinates the course development for the virtual learning community. And a Technology Center at Fayetteville Technical Community College, whom we have a representative for today. David Smith is our center director there. Basically, they take a look at all of those different technology tools that are used both in distance learning and in face-to-face instruction, and kind of vet those, look at all the ins and outs of using those tools, and then kind of help the colleges to understand what they're for, how to use it, what's required, best practices, that sort of thing. So basically the virtual learning community has these three centers that support everything that you do, both in distance learning and the technology used in the face-to-face classrooms as well. So the virtual learning community is sponsoring this session, and if you find that you need other sessions at your college, I hope you'll let us know, because we are happy to come and do that sort of training for you to help you with any of your training needs. So this session today is going to, again, just go over a little bit about communicating and interacting with those students. Talk about developing a teaching presence, communicating with them from the different methods of communication to the types of communication tools that can be used. And then I really want this to be a sharing session, so that you talk about what are some of the things that you use. Do you use some of the things that we're talking about today? But there may be other tools that you have just found are fabulous. And so I hope that this will also be about sharing your ideas with each other. So what is online teaching presence, and how do you form that as you're teaching specifically an online course? But then we're going to talk about keeping students engaged and motivated, because we know that's just a little more difficult in an online classroom. There's sometimes that disconnect between the student and the instructor or the other students or the content, and so we'll talk a little bit about how to keep them motivated. And then communicating with the students, because there are so many options. There are ways to bring what you have in the face-to-face classroom into that online classroom. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what are some of those tools and how can we help you to use those. So what do you think online teaching presence means to you? Anybody? What does that mean when you hear the phrase, your teaching presence, as compared to a face-to-face classroom where you're present in front of the students? So really it's about communicating your personality, adding that personalization of you into the classroom. We hear a lot of faculty talk about their academic freedom and the ability to teach the things the way they want to teach. And so the teaching presence is really how an online faculty member adds their own personal flair into the classroom. And making sure that they are connecting with the students, because when you're in the face-to-face classroom, you see their eyes, their facial expressions, their body language. You get to see that, and all of that's missing if you're doing a really asynchronous online class. And so helping to get that personalization and communication into an online class, it's not easy. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but it can definitely be done. So tell me, how many of you, by raising your hands, have taught an online course? 2 of you. Okay. How many of you are thinking about teaching an online course? How about a hybrid where it's, some mixed balance of face-to-face with online communication? Because that's a different tool altogether as well. All right, so we've got some newbies, and that's a good challenge. But, basically it's kind of trying to communicate through that computer to your students on the other end who want to make that connection and who need to make that connection in order to kind of feel committed and to help with your retention efforts, because we know that it can be a little bit more difficult in an online classroom. All right, so there's this community of inquiry is a great little Venn diagram that talks about the 3 parts of your teaching presence in an online classroom, being the cognitive, social, and teaching presence. So those things kind of have to blend together. And what you're searching for here is a really excellent educational experience for the student. So there's some overlapping of things and ways to kind of blend all of that together. So I have some good references. The references are going to be at the end of the slides, and you'll have those links that you can follow through those and kind of dig deeper into that. But as far as the cognitive presence, it's really about establishing the content and activities that you select to put in your online course that are going to bring that pedagogical portion of the classroom into the online class. So you've got the way that they're kind of thinking, processing, interacting in the course, that sort of thing. And then your social presence is really emphasizing the connections between the participants in that online class and the instructor. So it's about the degree to which that student feels present in the online classroom. So making that social connection, in a face-to-face classroom, how do you kind of get across to the student your personality, who you are? What are some of the things that you might do in a face-to-face classroom? Like connect to some personal experiences. If you have worked in that field in which you are teaching, you might connect some of the workplace experiences, things like that. Well, you can do that in an online classroom. It takes a little bit of effort, but there are ways to communicate that sort of thing and help the student feel that connection with you as the instructor. So one of the things that you can do is simply posting a picture of yourself. Sometimes just that visual representation for the student of who they're talking to on the other line if they have to give you a call, or who they're chatting with, or who they're communicating through email. Just having that visual picture of them helps them to make that social connection. Getting to know your students in that first week of class. Making some connection of, what are their interests. A lot of faculty members will use discussion forums like a coffee house, where the students basically kind of go in and introduce themselves and say, what are the things they're interested in? Why did they enroll in that class? Or why have they enrolled in that particular program of study? So that they know, what kind of motivates that student. So that's something that you might do in the first day of class when you're teaching in a face-to-face classroom, kind of letting the students get to know each other. And so discussion forums then are very beneficial in just that social aspect of a course. You might post an introductory discussion to kind of tell about yourself and your background and how long you've been teaching at the college and what were your work experiences or what was some life experience that maybe changed what you used to do and brought you to the field that you're in now, because that helps them make that distinction. It's really neat to contact the students even prior to the first day of class if you have access to that information. I'm not sure. Sometimes you have those drop add dates and everything gets down to the very last minute, or maybe you're not even given the course to teach until the day before of class. But if you do have that information, have you ever thought about emailing your students, sending them a quick video clip, maybe a video introduction, or just a welcome message in the course is a very basic way just to welcome them into your classroom. But a lot of faculty members are now doing these video or audio welcome messages, and it's very easy to do. We're going to talk to you about a couple of tools that you can use to do an audio welcome message, and you just send it out to your students in an email, and they click on the link, and they hear your happy voice and your cheerful voice, and they do make that connection and get excited about the class that they're going to be in. But it is also very important to be aware of the response lag time. Nothing more frustrating to a student than to communicate with their instructor and they just never hear back. They call, they leave messages, they send emails, they don't get a response. So it is very important, especially in an online classroom, to be just cognizant of what that response time is and make sure that you are responding to them and they don't feel like they're lost in the Ethernet somewhere and out there on their own, feeling that connection. So we talked about sending that welcome message. How many of you ever received a little postcard in the mail as you were growing up before classes started that said, who your teacher is going to be and what you might do for before classes start, what supplies you would need, that sort of thing, making that connection to the student. So we're going to talk about using Google Voice to record a message. How many of you have heard of Google Voice? Okay, and do you connect that then with your phone, with your cell phone, or?
I actually use it for voicemail on my phone. I don't use my cell phone provider's voicemail because Google Voice has so many great capabilities.
Yes, great. So we're going to click on this link, and Jennifer Jones, who actually is the one who created this presentation and recruited me to help deliver it for her, she's recorded a voice message for one of the online classes that she teaches, and I hope that this will work. And we may not have speakers hooked up to here. Let's see. Maybe they're muted. Okay. Well, we're not getting the sound here. But basically, Google Voice even has that captioning service, and you can tell by the words on there that it didn't quite capture everything. She's talking about this webinar, and it says this webinar will begin today. So if you're just transmitting the text, you would definitely want to edit that. But basically, the voice message comes across in a link, and it's sent to you in an email, and then you can provide that link to your students. You can send it out in an email to them, and they get to hear your voice, prior to starting in that class. So we'll just close that out. I'm sorry you didn't get to hear that because it's a really cute message. And so this is how easy it is. You go to the Google Voice website, you click a record button, it records whatever you say. Once the audio is transcribed, then a message just immediately goes by email into your email account, whichever one you choose, alerting you that the message is available, and it provides a link in that email. You can post that link in an email to all of your students or in a message in your actual course, however you want to use that. But it's just a great way to get them to, make that connection with you as an instructor. So, what tools do you use to communicate with students? I know we have a couple of online instructors here, so what are some of the things that you use in your online course to help you make that connection with the student?
We just use Moodle when I was doing Moodle.
Okay, so you mainly connect through the Moodle learning management system, through their messaging system, or through discussion forums, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. What about you, David? What are some of the things that you use?
I use Adobe Connect.
Okay.
And one of the things that I found useful, the advantage of Adobe Connect is you can archive it. And in distance learning, it's not a hybrid. There's an issue about requiring the student to reflect a specific time. So what I'll do is I'll have a review before assessment, and some of the students are available, call and ask questions. I archive that, and then I make the link available to other students who can go click on it and review, and they can actually see the review and they bring stuff up on the screen. And so that's the one I use a lot to augment. I use a tool called Audacity, which is a free, simple for voice, very easy to download. You hit the red button, record, hit stop. You can then just sit down and send that link out, or embed it into your course as well. Also, I have a welcome introduction video when they first log into the course. I think on this point about personalized, when they see a face, even this face, associated with the content, it personalizes a lot. So those are the tools that I find. I'm using a limited status Mobi Jabber that was mentioned. I would recommend strongly. The audio quality is excellent, so is the video quality, and that's what I would choose. So those are
Great. Yes.
This makes you think about the motivation and about the student. Like a student might be taking an online course because they don't want to be engaged. They purposely went out of their way to take an online course because they don't want to be involved in the way they want. But then you have students that still want that. So that's very hard for the instructor to balance that, because the motivation for the student sign up for the class in the first place is so fast. And I use myself as an example because I signed up for an online grad course about a year ago, and I admit I was one of those students. I was like, I don't have time to go to class. I want to do it on my own. And then the instructor wanted to have one-on-one Skype sessions, and that was very intimate to me. I never used Skype before. I'm like in my room, and like my bedroom's behind me, and I'm seeing his house, and it really threw me off. But by the end of the semester, I really liked it. But at first, I was like, I'm about to talk to my professor at 9 o'clock at night, and I'm in my pajamas. I'm like, I am trying to like, cover it up. I'm like brushing my hair, and like this is not what I expected for an online course. But I'm totally glad. Like it was a great class, but I just never even thought about that being an option. This person
Yeah.
using Skype, and it was really neat. But just made me think about.
On the instructional side, that's a good point. Think about the background the students are seeing.
Yeah.
Right. Right. That's part of that presence that you kind of create for the student is where do they see you when you're in a video chat? Yes.
I've actually, when I didn't want to be seen, but still needed to have a visual presence, I've used something called Voki, which is
Yes.
an online avatar. And you can type in the words and it'll use a computer voice, or you can have it call you, and it will actually record your voice. You can put your own picture of campus as a background. So it allows you to still have a physical presence, but it's not exactly you. It can be a school mascot, or it can be an animated version of you.
Yes.
There's some really cool technologies out there.
Is that synchronous live or is that recorded?
Recorded.
Because I use Go Animate. If you
Go
type
Animate.
and text in, you can picture the avatar.
Is that live?
No, it's recorded.
It's recorded as well. Right.
And you have two options. You put your actual voice in there, or you can type it in and it creates it.
Right.
The difference being when you type it in, the voice is synchronized with the movement from the lip to when you put your own audio in there. It's not.
Just moving. And I found with some of that type of technology, you have to type phonetically
Yes.
because it doesn't pick up every word as it should.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. That's the advantage of your audio file.
Right. And having your own voice, exactly.
Run that by some other faculty, and most of them, students like to hear your voice,
Yeah, they
because the inflections and all are not so clean. So
I agree.
most people can put the audio themselves.
Great. great discussion. So we're going to talk about some other tools. Some of you mentioned Skype, and that's basically that online conferencing tool. It's great to have virtual office hours. How many of you that are face-to-face have any virtual office hours? No, everybody does face-to-face? David does virtual, okay. And then for group activities as well. When students are working on a group project and they need to communicate with each other, but they just can't get everybody's schedule together to travel to some place where they can meet together, Skype is a great option. But I thought Vocaroo is a nice option. You can go to vocaroo.com, and it's basically a voice recording, kind of like Google Voice, but it's not really set up for your phone per se. But you can do a voice recording, send it by email, and it's free. And so you get that link in an email message, and you could forward that link to your students, or you could just post it into your course. But another easy, free way to have a voice recording to welcome your students. How many of you have heard of Join Me? Join.me? Okay, so this is a great free tool that is for screen sharing, and it includes a one-way voice chat. But both instructors and students could use this. And it's so easy. You go to the join.me website, and it will give you a particular URL that you can use then immediately. And so when I'm at work and one of our team members works off-site at Pitt Community College. And so we do a lot of chatting back and forth about specific contracts that we work on together, or the new Moodle contract that we have, the Learning Object Repository. And so he'll just pull up a join.me URL, send it to me, we get online, and we're sharing the document and able to edit it together and talk about what are the things that we need to change, or things that we need to edit in a contract. And it's just a great way to do that instant two-way communication and sharing of desktops. So he may have the latest version of the document we need to work on his computer, and rather than email it to me and we both pull it up and talk over the phone, he just pulls it up on his desktop, shares the desktop, and we can see it and edit it together then. It's just a wonderful little tool. Then there are the virtual environments. We talked a little bit about avatars. How many of you have ever used Second Life, the virtual environment? Just one, okay. So you can create an avatar, and students probably don't want to look at my face either, but I can create something that they might want to look at. And so you actually get to walk around in this virtual world, and that's a learning curve in itself, because it took me forever to figure out how to sit down, because they have places where you can go to meet, do lectures, you can load PowerPoints in Second Life. There are so many different things that you can do, but then you're walking around, sort of as a virtual presence, and communicating with other people who are in Second Life. And so there are many applications that, especially those shy students, you mentioned the ones who, they really don't want to get into that Skype session because they don't want that sort of invasion of their personal privacy or their home environment. They would feel much more comfortable in a virtual environment. So Second Life is one option for that. David's group has also tested something called VenueGen. Did I say that right? And Jibe.
It's a shameless advertisement. We provide the training and everything for you. It's free. You can even have an office, a virtual office. And you just contact it. Mark Sai is the person that we outsourced to, is writing a dissertation on using this. So there's a little bit of a learning curve with Second Life, with Jibe, which we're moving to. It's not as much of a learning curve. If you're interested, just contact me. I'll be happy to create an orientation session for you with your students, and help you set up classrooms and put stuff in there. So you don't have to do it on your own. That's one of the services we provide to your virtual community.
Second Life can be a little bit cumbersome if you're trying to create your own environment where they would come to meet. But the Technology Center created an environment where you can walk from room to room. It has, orientation sort of materials on how to use Second Life. You can go into a room and have a lecture, and the students, can sit down with their avatar. And, you know, the creation of all of that is the cumbersome part, because it does take time to create this virtual environment. They take some time, but the actual usage of it then as an avatar is very simple. How many of you have used Google Hangouts? Okay, great, a couple of you. There's a great video here, but I'm thinking that the audio is not going to work, because I don't think that it's connected to the speakers here. So this young man creates this video, and you can see it kind of looks like Facebook, you know, where you have posts and communications, and you can see who else is online, who you might be able to create a hangout with. But this YouTube video, and you should have the link in here, it takes you through the whole process, and it's just so simple to create this hangout. You call this person up, and you can have this conversation online through video chat. You can, you know, use just the message chat as well, but the video chat is really what makes it easy. And so students are really accustomed to this thing. You know, that's their comfort zone. Unless you have older adult students who are sort of in that learning curve piece of it still. But the younger students, they're just very comfortable with this type of environment. And that's really kind of what their expectation is. You know, they're very social. And so that's their way of connecting and kind of pulling things together and making sense with them, even when it's some new concept that they're learning. This provides that familiar area where they have some comfort. And so David mentioned Adobe Connect. I think some of the problems with Adobe Connect is probably that it's a little more expensive, because you can do free versions like join.me. It doesn't have all the functionality. And Adobe Connect has great functionality with archive sessions, and you know, if you have handouts that you want to provide in Adobe Connect, even the archive link of that webinar saves the handout, and a student can download the handout when they're just viewing the archive, if they're not even in the actual virtual session where you're teaching it. So there are some great benefits, but they come with a cost. And of course, Blackboard Collaborate is a great feature. How many of you have used Collaborate? It used to be called Illuminate, so you may be more familiar with that term. But basically, a lot of the same features as Adobe Connect, but it is a paid version as well. And then we mentioned Audacity. To do those voice recordings, just forget about the video. Audacity is another free download that you can use for the voice recording. So it's so simple. You download the free Audacity client. You click the record button. It records whatever it is that you have to say in your microphone. It's fairly easy to edit. And I'm a total novice at Audacity, but we had a presentation that we did for the State Board of Community Colleges, and I had planned a trip during that time. So basically, I recorded my message in Audacity to then be delivered when it came to my part of the presentation. It was only 10 minutes of the overall presentation. I wasn't going to cancel my trip for 10 minutes. So. But this was a great alternative where I got to actually deliver my part of that presentation. And so these are some of the resources for the information that we've gone through. The Center for Performance and Learning, Community of Inquiry, the concept map of that Venn diagram that you saw, Learning Solutions Magazine, and this Virginia Commonwealth University has some great information on creating that social presence. So what are your questions? What are your concerns? What are the things that maybe are the barriers that kind of have prevented you from teaching online, or making that first leap into a hybrid course? Mhm.
teaching might be the kind of request, but either way. I think my biggest reservation or what I'd be paranoid about is having the students be more equipped and knowledgeable than myself. I think, oh, I already feel it right now just working at the university.
Mhm.
I have to feel that my student workers show me tricks and programs on things that I'm trying to train them on how to do. So I think that
Mhm.
thought would make me a little nervous. I have to be so confident in myself and knowledge of
Mhm.
the systems and the programs to be a leader in a virtual or regular classroom.
You know, that's a great point. And there is a certain comfort zone that you really need, and practicing with your coworkers is very helpful for just kind of overcoming that initial fear. But one strategy, if you think about it, is why not use the students who are very comfortable with this technology, kind of take on some of that teaching responsibility. Have them show the others in the group how to use it, what are, you know, all of the menus and the buttons and things for, and that kind of takes the pressure off of you as the instructor, and it gives the students some confidence that, you know, hey, I can actually help these other students to learn what this is. Mm-hmm. What are some other barriers other than just the kind of fear of technology? Because I think that's probably a big one for most people. One thing that I always think of is the fact that there are so many technology tools out there. And so I'm going to pull up a website for you that may help you with some of those technology tools. And basically, the virtual learning community has a lot of help for that. So if you just go to vlc.ncommunitycolleges.edu, and click on the faculty tab. Now the VLC website has sort of many purposes. The different audiences that we have are students, faculty, and distance learning administrators. So the students tab has a functionality where they can search for particular online or hybrid courses. Maybe they need a particular course in sequence that the course is either full on your campus or it's not offered. And so they could go to other community colleges, take that online, and kind of keep that in sequence with, you know, getting to graduation time. But the faculty tab is basically where you're going to find a lot of resources to help you. The VLC library of courses, where you can search for what are the particular courses in the VLC that maybe you're teaching, and we've created those already for you. But the one that I really want to draw your attention to is the VLC support centers. And that is the Technology Center, Professional Development Center, and the Quality and Assessment Center. And so you'll see just a little bit of information about the VLC. And then in the Technology Center, we have a technology showcase of all of these different tools that have been vetted through the Technology Center. And if you're not familiar with them and how they work and what's required to use it, that sort of thing, then this kind of takes you through just a quick little information session on what it is. So if you chose Camtasia, it's going to tell you what is the description of the technology, what are the hardware and software requirements, what are the benefits of using it, the processes, and then some contacts and resources. So as an instructor in an online environment, there are so many tools out there. You can never stay on top of it all. And if you just know a handful of it, you're doing good. But having the Technology Center sort of vet those, if you will, is a tremendous benefit to our instructors in the system, because, you know, if they're not sure if they have the right hardware specifications to support it, those are the things that are required. What are some of the benefits? How can it enhance your teaching? That's the information for you. What's the actual process? How do you make it happen? And then some contacts and resources if you need it. So the Technology Showcase is just, you know, a list of some of them. We have so many more, but If you're interested in iTunes U or Jing, Kaltura, Lecture Capture, LiveScribe. LiveScribe is a really neat tool. How many of you have heard of LiveScribe? So this is a pen that has a recording device in it. And not only does it record your voice as you're, explaining it, it records what you're writing. And so that recording is connected to what you write. So you have a special notepad that you write the information in, and you just tap on things to record or pause recording or whatever. And so it captures all of that, and you can post that into a course. Now think of the application of math, chemistry, physics, those things that are very computational courses, and how you could write out the problems and explain how you're solving it and go through the steps. And all of that is recorded, both audio and visual, for the student. And what a tremendous benefit that would be to a student who's taking an online math course. Math, in the first place, they struggle with. There's the fear of math as there is with fear of technology. And so you're overcoming that a little bit by providing that step-by-step explanation. But LiveScribe is another great tool. Information about authoring your own ebooks or iBooks, iTunes, different mobile apps, even simple things like using Moodle, Office 2007, podcasting. Podcasting is another great way to communicate with your students to get that recording of your teaching presence into that classroom.
A lot of our instructors here on this campus use, have been using podcasting for a while.
That's great.
Students like it.
They really do. They really.
You get so much information. Yeah.
True. Very true. All right. So any questions, concerns?
I would make a connection in your presentation, one with the flipped classroom you're going to go to. Part of the flipped classroom is the kind of communication you're talking about with your students. And also, even though you may have a seated class, you only see them 50 minutes 3 times a week. And so by having the additional modalities to communicate with your students personalized, you can really enhance your face-to-face classes too. So don't think it's just a phone.
All right.
The
yes.
technology showcase that you pulled up,
Yes.
amazing.
Great.
I'll be using that tomorrow.
Great.
I'll tell Bob.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
I actually just finished a technology and higher education course,
Mm-hmm.
and we barely scratched the surface on the list that you had there. We used some different things as well, but but that was a pretty comprehensive list.
And we have another list like this that's going to be added to it, because our cycle for the virtual learning community is from July to June. So the funding has to be spent by May. So people are just hurrying to finish those projects now to get all of those contracts paid out. And then those will be made available very shortly after July, so that you have another list full of technology tools to use.
Sneak preview of what we have. We're doing a lot of interactive, like I mentioned, Go Animate, all those, as well as note-taking software and stuff that students can use to build sticky notes up and all those kind of things. We'll have like 8 or 10 new technologies coming out, 6 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yes,
That's fantastic. Thank you.
you're very welcome. Any other questions? All right. Well, we finished up early. Thank you all. And there's a evaluation form. Well, thank you.